Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this licensing committee on Thursday, the 11th of September. Have we got any apologies, please? Nope. Item 2, late items, I have none. Item 3, declarations of interest. Anybody have any declarations of interest? Item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of June. I've just got a couple of comments to make on those, which is the resolutions at the end. So the resolution for the chair to write to the local MPs. I have written to all 3 MPs and I have also written to the Minister. I've had a reply from 2 MPs and I will circulate all of the emails after this, if that's okay. Any other comments on the minutes from last time? No? Okay, we'll move on to the only item on the agenda this evening, which is item 5, Taxi and Private Hire Strategy 2020, review of the 5-year rule for private hire vehicles. Is that Angela or Pop? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, members, this report is brought to committee to review the Council's policy on the age of vehicles when first licensed as private hire vehicles. The current rule, agreed in 2019 as part of the taxi private hire strategy, is that vehicles must be no more than 5 years old from DVLA first registration at first licensing. This came into effect on the 1st of April 2025. Today's purpose is not to decide the policy itself, but to agree whether we should go out to public consultation on the options set out in the report. Derby City Council, as licensing authority, has a statutory duty to regulate hackney carriages and private hire vehicles under the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976. Our role is to safeguard public safety, ensure consistency and transparency across the trade, and to maintain confidence in the standards applied. Department of Transport statutory guidance reminds licensing authorities the vehicle age policies should be carefully considered, evidence-based, proportionate, and non-arbitrary, and must balance safety, environmental impact, accessibility, and affordability. In June, this committee considered a petition on this issue, rejected the petition but asked officers to bring back options for consultation. The report that you have in front of you sets out the process that we undertook, and 2 of the key elements that we looked at were vehicle inspection data to give information on the state of the fleet, but also comparison with neighbouring authorities. The vehicle data that we looked at was presented at the June committee and covered the period April 24 to March 25. That data indicated that 68 inspections had been carried out, so just under 10% of the fleet, but 34% revealed serious defects. This was broken down in the report in terms of ages over 9 years, 8 to 9 years, and 0 to 7 years. And as you'll see within the report, that vehicles over 9 years had the most serious defects, 17 of 23 inspected, and those vehicles 0 to 7 years were far better in terms of performance with very few serious failures. The implications of that data is that safety risks rise most sharply after year 7 with a significant spike beyond year 9. In terms of the other data that we looked at, which was comparison with the neighbouring authorities and their age at first registration, Wolverhampton currently stand at 11.5 years, Nottingham at 10 years, Gedling, South Derbyshire and Erewash are all 7 years. Derby at 5 years is therefore one of the strictest regimes locally. It's also important to note, in terms of age of vehicles, that the emission standards, since January 2025, all new private hire vehicles must meet Euro 6, ZEC or ULEV standards. That in practice allows vehicles up to 9 years old to qualify environmentally, so the 5-year law is slightly stricter than the emissions law requires. In terms of the options that have been presented within the report for your consideration, there are 3 main options, and these are all in line with the DFT guidance, which urges councils to ensure such policies are justified by evidence and proportionate to the risks. The 3 options laid out are retain the 5-year limit. This gives us the strongest assurance on safety, reliability and public confidence. It also supports our climate goals, but it is stricter than emission standards require, creates higher costs for drivers and risks drivers moving to neighbouring areas with more flexible rules. Option 2 is removing the age limit entirely. This maximises affordability and could support driver recruitment, especially for those on lower incomes, but it relies entirely on inspections and enforcement and increased costs for the council. It does risk undermining public confidence if much older vehicles remain in use, noting that the emissions policy would limit the age of first registration to 10 years. The third option is to relax the age limit to 7, 8 or 9 years. This option balances affordability with safety evidence. It reflects what our inspection data shows and is closer to neighbouring authorities' policies, but it will still need robust inspections because we know safety risks start to rise from year 8 onwards. There are a number of wider considerations as set out in the other reports regarding equalities and socio-economic impact. The 5-year rule disproportionately affects lower income drivers, and relaxing or removing the rule improves affordability and inclusion, but it requires safeguards to maintain safety and reliability. In terms of climate impact, all options continue to align with the Euro 6 ZEC ULEV standards, and retaining 5 years offers the strongest alignment with net zero ambitions. Relaxing the 79 years still supports renewal while widening access. There is an operational consideration here as well, that by relaxing or removing the rule, this may increase enforcement demand and require additional inspection resources, which has a subsequent financial impact on the fees and charges. The recommendations for today are to approve a public consultation on the options, retain the 5-year rule, remove the rule entirely, or relax the limit to 7, 8 or 9 years. Following that then is to delegate to the Director of Communities the power to undertake the consultation, review the results and report back to this committee with recommendations at a future meeting. So in summary, Chair and members, this is about balancing public safety, environmental commitments, affordability for drivers and accessibility for passengers. The inspection data gives us a clear evidence base. The Department for Transport guidance makes clear that any policy we adopt must be evidence-based and proportionate. Consultation will allow us to test the options with the trade, the public and stakeholders before making any final decision. I therefore commend the recommendations to you, Chair and members.
Any questions, Councillor Hudson? Councillor Wilson.
When I'm looking at 4.9, especially the relaxed age limit or scrap entirely, there's mention of increased costs. Have we got any kind of modelling of what these increased costs would actually be?
It's a difficult one to answer in terms of the scope of vehicles that would be purchased, but it's the comparative cost of a vehicle that is under 5 years old and anything that is over. So it is that increased cost of buying a 0 to 5 year vehicle.
Can I follow up on that, please, Chair? In terms of the actual council itself, there's talk of additional inspections, enforcement, staffing costs associated with doing these things. Do we know how much that would actually cost us and where would that money actually come from?
Yeah, I'll kind of answer in reverse order. So, the way the fees and charges work is that there is no profit made from the income from administering the taxi licensing service. Any resources that therefore operate in that environment, whether it's enforcement or the processing of applications, would have to come from increased taxi licensing costs. So we will need to increase those. In terms of just putting it into perspective, in terms of one individual, and these are approximate costs, and I can confirm exact costs later if required, we would probably be looking at, with on costs, at around the £50,000 mark for one member of staff.
Can I follow that up? What are we looking at is increased licence costs. How does that actually break down in relation to the actual person having the licence? Do we know?
In the simplest way of this would be apportioning the cost of that one individual across the number of licences that we anticipate that we would be approving or renewing in that given year. The following year, if there's any surplus or deficit because of that, the cost would then be adjusted again.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a couple of questions regarding the consultation. So how will the 12-week consultation ensure meaningful participation from the drivers, trade unions, passengers and vulnerable groups? And will all the consultation feedback be published?
Yes, if approved to go out to consultation, then there will be a full 12-week public consultation that will be available on our website. Once the consultation period is finished, we will then collate those responses, put them in a full report, and it will come back to this committee, and the responses are included in an appendix to the report itself.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to welcome this report in response to the points that I made at the last meeting and concerns about the current 5-year policy and how it was arrived at. I do think this gives us a good way forward in terms of being able to review the current position on an evidence base. And it's interesting to see the information that's been provided in terms of the numbers of inspections and how that breaks down according to the age of vehicles. And I think that's extremely helpful and something which I'm sure we'll consider when we come to make the final decision. I'd also like to say that the information about the comparisons with neighbouring authorities is also very helpful. So that helps give us a baseline in terms of where we are in relation to nearby authorities and therefore potentially how big the risk is of losing drivers to other licensing authorities. So I think this is very much to be welcomed. Just one question in terms of the consultation and when that goes out to members of the public and to the trade. We've got the 3 options there. Can I ask if at option 3 the different ages of vehicles, 7, 8 or 9 years, can be included individually in the consultation so that members of the public and the trade can indicate which one of those, if any, they have a preference for?
Yes, Councillor, that is noted and it will be included in the consultation itself.
Councillor Khan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just item 3 is 7, 8 or 9 years. So if this is a consultation, why can't we add saying 7, 8, 9 or 10 years and let the public and the drivers and the profession respond to that? So neighbouring authorities like Nottingham and a few others, they've got 10 years, so why can't we sort of add that 10 years on item 3 and let the consultation come back to us. Thank
Thank you, Councillor. The reason we've omitted 10 years is because of the existing emissions policy that we have, which requires all vehicles to be, since the 1st of January, to be ZEC, ULEV, Euro 6 compliant. That was standard in all vehicles from 2015. So essentially that means any vehicle over 10 years will not be able to be registered under our existing policy. So we've already got a cut-off in terms of age, which is 10 years.
Councillor Barton, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I welcome this report following the debate we had at our June meeting, and I think this is a way forward. So I thank the officers for their time on bringing this report to us this evening. You've answered one of my questions, how long is the consultation? 12 weeks. So working out approximately, if we start in October, it'll run till Christmas, approximately, and then hopefully, all being well, we'll get something back in the earliest committee we can next year. Is that the sort of scale of things?
Yes, we'll be looking at the final report coming back to this committee next year.
Yeah, early next year, presumably.
As soon as we can.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. And I think it's important that the trade, the public, the trade unions have their say in this issue, because obviously the taxi drivers and the private hire drivers do deliver a welcome service in this city to many of our constituents, and I think we ought to obviously listen to them and hopefully come up with a sensible way forward. But looking at the options and the neighbouring authorities, Chair, clearly we are the only authority who's got the 5-year, and if we look at Gedling, South Derbyshire and Erewash, they have the 7-year. So I think we need to, be more in line with them. I think that would help things along. But regarding the consultation, and while perhaps this is a separate matter, but it's still consultation and communication, can I just ask if we have the trade meetings? We used to have trade meetings every couple of months so that we can listen to the trade and they can listen to us. Is that still going ahead? Because I think that would be useful to know.
Yes, Councillor, yes. We do hold the trade meetings, and this, once consultation is ready to go live and is actually on the website ready, then we will be discussing it at the trade meetings as well, to engage with the trade as well as the public.
Come back on that. So who attends the trade meetings? Because I think previously it was the chair and vice chairs would get invited. I've never been invited to them. So when are they held, and why aren't we being invited?
If I can put some context on that, they used to involve the chair and the vice chairs, and it got to a point where there was chairs, vice chairs, 2 officers and a legal representative, and 2 members of trade turn up. So we decided that it wasn't viable to do it that way anymore. So the chair at the time suggested just officers meet trade going forwards. Maybe you could give an indication of attendance.
At the last trade meeting in March, Chair, there were 4 people in attendance. 2 were from one trade group, and then there were 2 separate ones. So the attendance was 4 members. The invitation went out to all trade.
So why haven't councillors seen the reports from the meetings so that we've got a little bit of a feel of what was discussed at those meetings? And I'd like to suggest, Chair, that it is an open invitation for any member of this committee to attend such meetings if they wish. Had I known they were still going on, then I think we should have been at least had an invite because I think it's important that the councillors are at the interface as well. I take on board that we have got protocols to stick to regarding licensing committee, because we do seem to be getting quite a few emails of late regarding various issues in the trade. And I think perhaps that might be avoided if we have a more efficient and a better communication between the trade and ourselves without putting ourselves into any difficult situations. So I'd like to suggest that councillors attend those meetings if they wish. I certainly think the chair and the vice chair ought to be there, because how do they know, the feeling of the trade? I really think we've lost our way a bit, and I would like personally to get that back and to hopefully understand the issues that the drivers have to face, and they could listen to the issues that we have to face. I really think we've got a weak link here, and I'd like to see it readdressed.
We'll speak to officers about that and see about a way forward, about restarting. Okay. Councillor Pandy.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to hear that 2 of the members of Parliament responded to your request. I haven't seen the reply, but could I ask, in the last meeting and also in general, the major concern, especially from the public, is about the registration from Wolverhampton especially. Have they replied anything on those points? Because that was the main point raised, wasn't it? Thank you.
Yeah, I can show you the email after, but that's not what we're discussing right now.
Is there any gist, or?
Pardon?
Is there any gist? Have they said anything about if if they can bring some changes, so Derby people?
Right, well, if you want to talk about it, then the only thing that anybody can do is legislation. So it is up to them, and it's up to the minister to make the legislation. We can't make anybody do anything. Like I say, I'll let you see the email, but that's not what we're discussing at the moment. That's all right. Councillor Moore.
Chair, can I come back? I would like to propose that the trade meetings go ahead and that councillors can attend. I don't think we want it discussed behind the scenes. I think we should discuss it now, because it's a wish of our committee. It's a wish that we wrote to the MPs, or you wrote on our behalf, and I thank you for that. But we haven't seen what letter you sent and the responses. But I really think we need to encourage a better relationship with the taxi trade, and I don't want it waiting till the next meeting. I'd like to discuss it now, and hopefully, if there's any support from fellow councillors, we can agree it tonight.
Yeah. Chair, if I can just step in at that stage. The issue about the trade meetings came up as legitimately as part of their consultation point on the main paper. However, what is not on the agenda correctly is an item about reinstating or revisiting the trade meeting situation. The chair has said that she's going to get the officers to look into that with a view to coming up with a package to see what can be done to resuscitate that. On the basis it's not on the agenda, I don't believe it will be appropriate to go to a vote on that. It's certainly not something which has been advertised under the publicity rules. So it's not something which I would recommend, Chair. But the chair has committed to getting the officers to review the situation with a view to looking to see if we can reinstitute that. I think what that means is that the officers will be obliged to come back at the next meeting or the future meeting with those proposals to answer their questions which have been raised from the floor.
Thank you, Ollie. Councillor Mulhall.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a very quick question. So, can I get a guarantee that regardless of the outcome of the consultation, whatever recommendations you put to our committee will put public health and safety first and make that paramount?
That will be implicit within the consultation. So alongside the questions that we will pose, there will be a synopsis of this report with the pros and cons against each as we see them.
And will that be pros and cons against the age limit variances?
Yes.
So the pros for a 5-year limit, pros and cons for 7, 8, 9, etc.
Yeah.
Councillor Potter.
Thank you. Just to go back to the proposed trade meetings, I just want to ask Olo, would these be sort of without prejudice, of course?
When you say without prejudice, I'm trying to, perhaps we should have that conversation outside, because I've already said the trade meetings aren't on the agenda, so I wouldn't want to get that back up again. I'll give you a call and we can have a conversation about that.
Any further questions? No? Okay.
Chair, can I just say one thing as well? This is perhaps more for the officers. When the report was in draft at 2.3, I made the adjustment to recommendation 2.3 about making sure that delegation was in consultation with the chair. But that hasn't made its way to the live paper. Can I suggest that you revisit, when you go through the recommendations now, you revisit that and make sure that's minuted for. Thank you.
Right, okay, so if we're all happy and there's no further questions, recommendation 2.1, committee approve a public consultation on the following options. 1, to retain the current 5-year age limit. 2, to remove the age limit entirely. And 3, to introduce an alternative age limit, e.g. 7, 8 or 9 years. Okay with that? 2.2, committee delegates the power to undertake the consultation to the Director of Communities. All okay with that? And 2.3, the committee delegates the power to the Director of Communities to A, make arrangements for the review.
Director of Communities in consultation.
In consultation with the Chair. Sorry, thank you. Is that minuted? So committee delegates the power to the Director of Communities in consultation with the Chair. A, to make arrangements for the review of the product of the consultation. B, report on the consultation outcomes. And C, to make appropriate recommendations for consideration by this committee at a future date. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. And that's all we have for tonight. Thank you very much.